Okay.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
The Florida Panthers. No.
It's been a day. Yeah, welcome to sunny Florida. I'm really excited. We all got vaccinated, so we haven't seen the my parents' in-laws, my in-laws, my wife's parents. I'm losing my mind. My wife's parents, my in-laws. I haven't seen them for a long time.
It's 35 in Buffalo, X. So
they're in their 80s. I know. So Mike, you should come here. It's really nice here. I don't know why you're not here. Yeah, it's 35 in Buffalo. Why would you be there? No, but it's 88 here.
Wow.
It's really hot.
Yeah, that's almost too hot. Like you're getting to the point where
that's sweltering.
Yeah, it is. And then yesterday we spent the day, walking around what felt like the African savannah, because we went to ironically enough, the National Florida Panther Reserve, which is where which is a really fun place to hike around. It's really bizarre though. It's very Jurassic Park-like. It's southern Florida. And it's got these really big tropical plants. How you let yourself into the Florida Trail for hiking is through there's a 12-foot barbed wire fence that surrounds the Florida Panther Preserve, which is a really huge amount of area. But you go through a little door that you close behind you, and now you're hiking with the Panthers.
Wow!
and it's nothing but you, and it's a little nerve-wracking. I have to say, like you're in there, you're like, this is a little strange. There's 200 Panthers in here.
Did you see Ed Jovanovski and Bill Lindsay?
No, the Panthers are good at hiding. They won't. You won't see them all. You'll find their prints and things like that. Yeah, they know you're there. There's no question about that.
You felt too safe after being vaccinated, so you figured I'll go and walk with Panthers.
Well, my son is a huge zoology kid and naturalist, and he's one of his favorite animal in the whole world is the Florida Panther, and he has been involved with all kinds of rescue things about that, and he's nothing. So this is like his great favorite place on earth. This is the third time we've been there, and it is like savannah-like hot.
Going after dark, make it a real challenge.
Yeah, I know. You're not allowed to. It's a dawn to dusk place.
My favorite animal is something that can't kill me.
I know they're amazing. We saw a couple that in the rescue there. They're incredible animals. They're very much endangered, and because what's interesting and the fight right now. This is a different kind of pre-show maybe, but hey, the fight right now is.
Well, Russ has got some pre-show
between the Florida Panther. It's not actually a mountain lion like we think of throughout the country. Like we have mountain lions everywhere in the country. The Panther there are very distinct differences to it. Yet it's being classified as a mountain lion, which means it's not getting the proper needs that it needs for extension stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of animals that have that problem in this country.
Is it like the Jersey Devil?
No, it's real. But the thing about it is like the head looks different. The cubs are born with spots where they're not like it's the difference between a lion and a tiger basically. But it's as if in America we just have one big cat and that's what we have. And because of that, the Florida Panthers are not getting the support they need down there to actually stay a species. And their numbers are dwindling. So my son's been very much involved with a group that's trying to get that distinction changed so that they're their own species. Which they should be. So it is crazy though to walk around with them. I have to tell you that. We set up some trail cams in there too, which is going to be fun to see what happens.
Nice.
Russ, what did you have?
Pre-show will actually maybe affect all sports, but right now, Major League Baseball and the Players Association are urging their players to get the vaccine. If they get the vaccine, one of the perks they're saying now is, hey, if you do that, your family can now travel with you on the road. And so they're trying to now implement that because they figured, hey, we're at the point now in this where a lot of people are getting it. We're not really cutting in line, and it would really help the sport get back to normal. And, I have to say I'm in favor of it. I think it would be a smart thing to do. There'd be more certainty. The players could then be happier if they want their families with them. That's great. Also, as an example, here's some weird things, right? So last year I was at spring training. First time I ever went, got a signed baseball. A day later, players were no longer allowed to sign baseball. And then 3-4 days later, spring training's closed, baseball's closed, the world is closed. So a lot of things that go along with baseball, like signing baseballs before games and interaction with fans is gone, right? And for a fringe sport like baseball, that really hurts it. So I do think they do need to work on this and get players to do this, because they do need the boost publicly.
Well, I do think that one of the things that they'll end up doing until everybody's comfortable with the fact, that everybody's vaccinated, that you're going to have like teams bring out a box of baseballs and the players sign them and throw them into the crowd rather than taking them from other people.
Yeah, they might do that.
Right, because then there's no worry in terms of getting infected that way. So
yeah, I mean, we're back to the. I mean, now in America, at least they're saying, that a lot of states are saying that anyone over the age of, or any adult now can be vaccinated. You don't have to necessarily have special circumstances. The second that happens in a state that a team's in, I think that team should be vaccinated.
New York today, just 30 and over are getting vaccinated.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, I honestly do believe that. I mean, well, I'm part of the economy that are run by, athletes, like we're all part of the economy that run by athletes. And I think that, that I know they're not, obviously they should never be vaccinated before first responders or medical people or anything like that.
No, but that's been months already.
But all those people have mainly gotten it now. So to me, they are part of the economy that should be considered to make, and obviously there's a lot of money that's tied up in all the sports. So
we can get Corinne's opinion because in her country, it's not exactly the same as this. So let's see what her feeling is.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good idea, frankly, but in Canada, we're not up to that point yet. I mean, my parents are both over 70 years old, and they're not getting vaccinated until the 6th of April. Right now, people can make appointment. It's only 65 years old and over that can make their appointment. So we're far, far, far from that.
Yeah, it sounds like Canada's about 2 months behind in terms of where we were, which, I mean, I know that like I'm anxious to get back into Canada, and it probably is not going to happen until probably July, which, that's, that pisses me off, but I understand it, but I want back in. That's my
Normally, I'd say it doesn't matter because we're way ahead of you on hockey, but no, this is too important. Yeah. It does matter.
Well, I mean, had you guys not been so good at the virus, we wouldn't have had a playoffs last year. So, I mean, you guys have done really, I mean, but unfortunately, we are in a situation now where the vaccines are American companies, mostly. And that is definitely where America is benefiting.
That's the reason.
Is it free over there in America?
Yes.
Yes.
It is. Okay. That's one good thing.
Yeah, it's free. You don't even need insurance. It's like, so. Yeah, it's. I mean, so far, I'm glad to see this. I think that this could open up things. I do, think that we could. You're hearing more stuff about that. If you have a card saying you've been vaccinated, you might be able to attend different kinds of events, different ways.
Everybody should save their card. Yes.
Yeah, I got my card.
I'm getting it laminated.
Yeah, I did. We did that with all of ours.
Actually, my place, I couldn't even use the card. I had like these. They give you forms instead. So now I have to bring the forms with me. So I'm going to get something to carry this with for like the next year.
Yeah, you're gonna. That's
so just carry it with a lanyard around your neck.
I was gonna say I'm gonna have my season credential and my COVID vaccine proof around.
Yeah, see, they didn't sign my cards though. They just gave you these printouts, so now I got to bring the printouts with me.
I'll grab you a card when my.
No, I have a card, but it doesn't matter what I sign on it.
Yeah, right.
So,
All right, let's get started here. We got a lot to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on one second. Let me get the date because I don't know where the hell we are. When the hell we are.
The 29th.
The date didn't change when you went to Florida.
Feels like it did.
It's not like Florida's on the international date line.
It's quite nice though to see an actual Florida background and not.
This is not my Zoom setup. This is not my like. These are actually palm trees, and that is actually the Gulf of Mexico behind me. If I step out here, it'll probably go even better because it probably focuses on that. Look at that.
I want to go there.
That doesn't suck.
I'm not sure I want to. The virus is thriving there. I don't think I want to go.
Fair point.
It is. I mean, we're wearing 2 masks around everywhere. We flew in an airplane.
He's living right next to Ron DeSantis.
All right, here we go. Yeah, right. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, March 29th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and I live in the People's Republic of New York.
I'm Karen Nice, and I live in Quebec, where we're not vaccinated yet.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology. Yes, I've been vaccinated, but I hope Corinne can get vaccinated soon, and her parents especially.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm Ekblad, and these geese picked the perfect time to fly by me.
Are they on a bombing run?
I know. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time. Can you hear them? To fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we got to start today with that horrible scene last night, the Aaron Ekblad injury, which is just brutal. I mean, to see like player, and then to hear the players' reaction, like, you could hear them scream because there's not that many people in the crowd, and then in tears, and oh my gosh.
Heck, as soon as I saw the messages on Twitter, I went back and watched it live, and I'm not the one who slows down like Joe Theismann's broken leg, but I needed to see what happened, and it's a massive injury. It's probably he was grabbing his knee. I think it's ACL.
We're not hearing anything at all from them.
No, you probably won't.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I've had 6 knee operations, all because of busted ACLs. And when I saw that, I actually screamed. I was like, "Ow, poor guy!"
Yeah.
And when he fell, he probably heard the very, very, very loud pop you get, and that's when the ligament's gone, and you're just like, "Oh."
I can tell you this. I've had more than a few firsthand situations, encounters with Ekblad. He's such a good guy. Like the one time I went to the Erie game and he shook my hand before the interview. He was a rookie, and I was impressed with the way he carried himself. And then a few years later at the rookie photo shoot, I had this one-on-one with him, and he's just a delightful guy. He has fun. He loves hockey. And it's just, I just feel bad because his career, the best years of his career are getting robbed because of injuries. And at some point fans are going to be like, "Oh, he's a bust." And it's like, no, he
year was on to his best season. I mean, he was really having a hell of a year this year. And
he's not Gord Kluzak. It's not somebody who was picked first overall and had chronic knee injuries and never realized. I mean, he was one of the best young defensemen, wins the Calder the first couple years of his career, then has the concussion issues, and he was just coming out of this year. This was probably, like you said, this was probably his best year, and now this is a massive knee injury. You would assume he's probably going to be out at least a year, and I think the Florida Panthers now are in a situation where that's their best defenseman. Their defense was not exactly strong with him, and now without him, I don't know. Like this is not a situation where I'm saying, I can go out and trade for David Savard and he fills this. You can't fill this spot. He's a linchpin, franchise level #1 defenseman who you cannot replace.
Yeah, for this year for sure, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to come out and be exactly at the same level as he was. I mean, Andrei Markov has had that injury twice, and every time he came back, he was just as good. Maybe he slowed down a bit, but he made up with his IQ. So I can see Ekblad coming back from that and being fine.
I agree.
Yeah, that's very good point. I mean, I think that there are different kinds of teams, and the Florida situation is is one of the more unique situations. Obviously, they have, they've had their issues with selling tickets. This year they haven't, this year they were the first to let fans in. But they are a building team. But at the same time as they're a building team, it's rare that they get the season they've been having. I mean, the season they're having is one of those moments in hockey where everything for a long time was going perfectly. Like their momentum was there, they were playing really well. The chemistry was great. I mean, I was a couple weeks ago poking around to see if they would do anything because if they were going to be buyers because there they are, and they said basically what I got is why would you mess with chemistry with the roll run? We have everything. And teams often do screw this up. They go out and they find a top 6 or a 5 or 6 defensemen to bolster their team, and it messes things up because that knocks somebody out of the lineup who has been a part of this growth. So. The situation here is really interesting, yet they are also sort of, since they're a building team, I would say it's safe to say that anybody, including themselves, would probably admit that they're playing better than they should this year. And they're not as, I heard somebody say this, and I really thought it was perfect. They're playing above their heads this year, but they're not as bad as everybody thought they were. And I think that is exactly.
I agreed with that. I said that even last year because I thought they had the makings of a playoff team and they just got derailed.
But without Ekblad, though, this is not the Tampa Bay Lightning trying to win the cup without Stamkos.
No.
They don't have the depth. They're not as threatening without him.
This is a team that.
Whoa, wait, and on top of that, I mean, Barkov is out now. He supposedly will come back in about a week, but we don't know what kind of injury it is. The rumor is it's lower body. I've heard high ankle sprain. If it's high ankle sprain, he may come back. He's going to be nowhere close to what he was. And Hornquist is hurt too. So I mean, at a certain point when you have a saturation of injuries and it's a situation where I don't care if you're trying to sell tickets. It doesn't make a lot of sense to spend assets to fill holes that you can't possibly fill.
Well, there's different kinds of aspects of that, right? A guy, if Ekblad's on LTIR, for example, that's money they can spend, and they will,
Right.
and they'll go out there and they'll because that's money that they no longer have to. If they didn't have anybody on the guy, they're going to put another $2 million on their cap or whatever this year. That would be a tricky situation for a team like that. But now, they're committed to winning. I mean, they're a team that, and they're going to ride the wave. And I mean, the only way you can look at this if you're them is like, okay, this is like part of the fairy tale type season. This is one of those things that happens where every team that goes through something like this goes through some horrific thing in the middle of the year. I'm not saying Ekblad is going to come back this year or anything like that and be like,
he's not coming back.
He's not coming back. But at the same time, he is such a popular guy. He is such a team leader, Russ. I think that there will be a rallying cry and how long that adrenaline keeps going is interesting. In a normal season, if we were like 40 games, 30 games in or whatever, I would say, wow, that's hard to keep that going. But now with only like 20 games to go for teams, that could help them. That could keep them in the playoffs. That could keep they could continue to win enough. I mean, this is unquestionably the weakest division in hockey. And I say that for a lot of reasons, but one
until you get near the top, then it's not.
Right. No, but that's also is interesting because it plays.
It's only weak for you to get into the playoffs, but there's not necessarily going to be any easy matchups in the playoffs.
Oh no, I mean there's not.
You're trying to avoid fourth because
Right. Yeah, Tampa's killer. And that's the big thing to avoid fourth, because Carolina and Florida is a good series. That's a back and forth series. If everybody's healthy, now you probably would give the edge to Carolina, but still at the same time, I think that they're going to find it as a rallying cry. And when you think of it, like three of the top 6-point teams are in this division. That tells you, naturally through math, the power of math, that tells you this is a weak division. That you have like three teams that are pounding everybody else, and those the other teams down there are just getting killed, right? So.
Right, but
it's going to be interesting to see if they can rally behind it. And
the only issue that I see, Ek, is this is like when you find one leak in your house, and then you find that there's 2 or 3 more because Barkov's out and Hornquist is out.
Right,
and
they're coming back.
They're
both coming back in like a week. So
okay, but even so, in that week, they're not going to be able to make a trade in a week, and so if they even start to slip in that week, I would not want to go in that heavy just to be 3rd or 4th in the playoffs and get knocked out in the first round. I get if there's some revenue there, they're going to want to recoup something, but I wouldn't go heavy on a trade. I'm
going to pivot here because Corinne's got limited time here, and we talk about Montreal. So Corinne, first of all, we'll talk about the trade first. Eric Staal going from Buffalo to Montreal. Buffalo retaining 50% of his $3.25 million salary, and they get a 3rd and a 5th round pick. This deal is testament to the inexperience of Kevin Adams because
yes, it is.
The speculation out there was that they wanted a 2nd round pick for Eric Staal. He was a $3.25 million cap hit, which is not unreasonable or was not a big cap hit to have to retain money. Last year, just for example, in terms of money being retained and how much teams get paid for that, the Leafs were the middleman in the Robin Leonard deal with Vegas and Chicago. They retained $1.1 million in that deal and got a 5th round pick. So what that means is the 5th round pick in this deal was to retain the salary. They got a 3rd round pick for Eric Staal. That is unconscionable from the Buffalo perspective.
But what's even better about that is that Montreal right now is sitting on 12 more picks in that upcoming draft.
Right.
And that draft, which is not going to be pushed back, the scouts won't have had nearly enough time to scout people. So it's going to be even more of a crap shot than normally.
It's a crap.
So Bergevin is just, laughing right now. Clearly, I was when I saw that deal. And I was like, okay, ideally, we might have liked to move a player and money, but, getting rid of picks in a draft, that's going to be even more of a gamble
and they
to address the need that we have.
They have 3 2nd-round picks. So, I mean, honestly,
I would love to go back to the tape, guys, on Thursday. I wasn't here on Friday because I was traveling.
Right.
But on Thursday, do you remember what I said when we talked about Mark Bergeron, who we talked about like
Bergeron? Yeah, you did. I did hear. I remember.
You said that Mike said, "Well, they just came out today," and he said he's not going to do anything. And my response was like, "Yes, that's exactly what he's going to do."
That's what everybody. but Eck, what he didn't expect is for somebody to be so stupid as to retain salary and not get the price that he was looking for. Montreal's got 3 second-round picks, and they didn't even get one of those for Eric Staal.
Right, but we have to temper this a little. Like they got a steal of a deal, but this isn't 25-year-old Eric Staal.
I want to throw that up.
No, it's not. Right, we don't need the 25-year-old Eric Staal. What we do need is a depth center because our depth at center, we've got 2 young guys here, and whenever Phil Deneau is just gassed because he's played too much, you need someone reliable to go and win that big face-off.
And that's what we got. Corinne, I think more than that, you guys needed an experienced guy like Eric Staal. Yeah. Eric Staal, a guy who's won the cup before, a guy who's been through this. I mean, he's like, this. There's not many of those on the Montreal Canadiens, and at all. And
there's more than there was with Edmondson, Jake Allen, Toffoli.
Right. But Staal is like, Jake Allen's a goalie. Toffoli is like a role player. Staal is a leader. Like this is a captain. He's been a captain of his team.
Yeah, true.
Well, the one good thing for Montreal is that he clearly wanted to go there based on, you saw the comments that he made about Buffalo. He basically said, well, I don't have to make any more comments about that team because I'm not there anymore. I mean, I'm sure he wouldn't have said what he really thought because he's friends with Kevin Adams, but Buffalo, it was a disaster, and he had a bad year there, and he really didn't want to get traded to Buffalo. He wanted to stay in Minnesota. They traded him.
Yeah.
And you could tell, I think you could tell by the way he played. So he's got a fresh start in Montreal. He's got a team that's going to make the playoffs. He's got a support structure there with guys like Weber and Price. So I think you're going to get something good out of him. He's just not a star anymore. He's a third line.
Don't underestimate what like a Canadian player who grew up in Canada means to pull that sweater over their head. It's significant. It's
also more pressure than he's faced in the last 6-7 years too.
True. Well, the thing that shows that he wants to come as well is that he had Montreal on his no trade list and he lifted it. That just shows you how much he wanted to get out of Buffalo as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that is pretty weird they had him on no trade list. I thought about.
Well, you've got taxes, you've got the COVID situation. If his deal wasn't expiring, maybe he wouldn't have lifted it. But for a few months, why not?
Right. I don't think
it's a monetary.
I don't think Montreal was first on his list. I just think he wanted out of Buffalo so badly that he was like, "This is fine. I will take this. I like it."
Right now, Russ, if they were trading him to hell, I think he'd wave his no trade clause.
Here's the other thing, though, about that, Mike, and it's like I said this a couple times last week and last couple weeks too, because I've been trying to track Staal. As one of the guys that was tracking, there was no market for him.
Well,
and I kept saying that nobody really, everybody thought he was done. Everybody thought he had nothing left.
Then I'll give Bergevin a lot of credit for this because it made a lot of sense, especially after the Canadian government lowered the quarantine from 14 to 7 days. That was done the day of. So and Montreal is on quarantine right now until next Tuesday. So they're going to miss Staal for a game or two. Whereas others, if they did it done it a week earlier, he would have been out. Then they missed 5 or 6 games. So as soon as that deadline was lowered, or that quarantine was lowered to 7 days, they made the deal, and it made sense for them to make the deal because he's not going to miss hardly any time.
No, it's true.
Now, the other thing with Montreal was, and I don't think this is insignificant, Corinne, was the signing of Cole Caufield to an entry-level deal. I'm not saying he's going to be a star right away because you don't want to put that kind of pressure on a 19 or 20-year-old kid, but he had a phenomenal year at Wisconsin. He's a top prospect. I think if they're smart, they will put him on maybe a third line and keep the expectations low. But he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, but we already know that he's going to start in the AHL with the Laval Rocket. That's been confirmed. He even said it to the media this morning because I think it was Arpon Basu or Rick Engels who asked, so Cole, do you know if you're going to be playing your first few professional games with the Rocket or if there's a chance for the NHL? He said, no, I already know it's going to be the Rocket to start with, which is very smart because you need to evaluate the guy.
Yeah.
And if you're going to bring him up, you want him to have at least a top 9 role. This guy is a goal scorer. You don't put
Right.
that on the sport line because
No.
that would be wasted. So yeah, it is very exciting. And after the Harris watch ended in a bad way for Montreal, I think everyone was very, very glad to hear the next day after the elimination that Caufield was coming. It's like, yes.
This is the kind of player that is like that city is going to absolutely fall in love with. Like this is going to be if he shows up and does anything, like they will be thrilled in the beginning. I mean, they're going to be pressure on him for sure, but they're going to love this.
Yeah, but it's good. With the Rocket now, he could have a couple weeks, and if he does score, they'll bring him up.
Right.
They'll bring him up. I really do think they'll bring him up. I mean, especially if you read what Tony Granato said about him, he thinks he's ready for the NHL.
Yeah,
it's
we
just
all
a matter of
think
seeing how he can do in pro hockey first and then bring him up.
Right.
But Montreal is going to go crazy for him because the Canadians have been starved for goals for so long.
And as Russ pointed out to me on the weekend, Philadelphia is going to go crazy in another way for Caufield.
Yeah, who was it? Cam York that they picked the defense.
York and Brink.
What's the deal on that?
Bobby.
Well,
Brink,
they were picked right before Caufield.
Right. Oh yeah.
Everyone in Montreal went, what? Okay.
Can we go back to the text? Can we go back to the text that we had during that time? I was like freaking the hell out about that.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, that's going to be. Gosh, a flashy, speedy scorer in Montreal is like never.
No, I'm pretty sure he's a star in the league, and my feeling still stays the same on that trade, even as good as Cam York is, and the potential of Bobby Brink because you got the extra pick there. But I always take the guy with the higher upside rather than the two really good players because end of the day, you see like. Just in the last year, the jump that York made, he's going to win the Hobey Baker unless something weird happens. He had 28 goals. Like, there's no way you're getting 28 goals out of either one of York or Brink in their first season. But in Caufield's, you probably can get 25 NHL goals in his first season, like next year. This year, I don't know what he'll do on the fly. But he if he figures it out, his speed is much better this year than last year, and he always had good edges, but his speed wasn't the best it was. And you saw he put on 10 pounds of muscle, maybe 15. That's been good too. And he's got the confidence right now, so that's good.
Yeah, but I think the main reason why he slid down the draft was just because of his size. I mean, Philadelphia is hardly known for picking, small players, are they? Whereas Montreal doesn't really care about that. I mean, they've been small for quite a long time. Yeah. They've bulked up this year, but they
I think
never.
It was more than the size, Corinne. I think the size is the easy excuse. Yeah. I think there was other things that they didn't like about his game that they felt like they could pile on the list where they say, all right, well, there's size and this. So what is he? If he's just a goal scorer, maybe we shouldn't take him. I think they talked themselves out of it, basically.
Yeah, that's possible also because his game on the other side of the puck wasn't all that, but he's made huge progress with that this year. Yeah. So,
he's a smart kid. I mean, if you interview, I got to talk to him one time. I'm sure you've talked to him, Russ, or whatever. It's like, he's a smart kid. It's not surprising to me that he would find whatever his issues are and fix them. Like he would work on it. It's that kind of player. Not every player does that, but a lot of players say they're going to do that, but you can tell he would be the one to do it.
Yeah, he's a lot like DeBrincat in that way. He's succeeded at every level. And again, I don't think people even realized how bad Wisconsin was a year ago, where he wasn't going to score that many goals. This year they were better. Holloway was a second-year player. Everything was a little better there. And as a result, he was able to score that many goals and score a few in the postseason there too. So it's great. It's great.
But Wisconsin wasn't even meant to be that good this year either because they lost Keandre Miller, they lost Turcotte as well. So everyone was like, the Badgers aren't going to be doing much this year. And there you go, they win the Big Ten and in big part because of Caufield. So
no, it was really something. I mean. It's definitely. I can't wait to see him play in Montreal. I think he's going to be a factor. And I think they're not. It wouldn't be like Montreal if they didn't bring him up at some point this year.
Yeah, but in the meantime, I can tell you that everyone in Montreal is trying to find a way to stream the next Rocket game where he's going to feature. I think it's the first time in my life I'm actually looking forward to watching a Rocket game.
Here's something from the chat room. Like Roger Matthews says,
there you go.
Caufield's a big question mark. You can't tell the numbers, not in the NHL. Every prospect is a question mark.
Yeah.
But the idea is when you're scoring that many goals in college hockey, when it's a physical league, that bodes a little better than if he is just coming in from a junior team.
You're right. I mean, it's a really good point.
Situation.
I mean,
those
honestly,
numbers in juniors are very different than numbers in college.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think, and Russ knows a lot more about this than I do, but I think we're past it when it comes to terms of evaluating prospects, where size really doesn't matter. If there's talent, if there's speed, if there's ability there. I mean, okay, if a guy's 5'6", but if he's 5'6" and has edges and is quick, they can make it professionally. It's like we were dumbfounded back in 2016 in Buffalo when DeBrincat slipped out of the first round because we
were dumbfounded.
I mean,
about that one too.
I saw Erie Otters games and said this guy is going to be a really good top flight scorer in the NHL.
I also want to answer Esmir because he goes, to be fair, a lot of people pass on Caufield. That's not the situation. The only reason we're mentioning Philly again is because they had a specific need for a goal scorer and they passed on him. They didn't have to pass on him. They decided to trade down and take the extra pick, I think it was. And that's their decision. But again, they needed a goal scorer and they passed on him.
Yeah, no, and it's, and defense, at that time, they were really, at the time they picked York, they were really kind of considered to be stacked defensively. Like they really were. Now that has turned out to not be necessarily the case. So it's worked out. That has worked out.
It has worked out in that regard.
And it'll be hard to see, it'll be hard for them to keep getting Cam York in the lineup too. Like, I wonder if could we see him at all this year, Russ? Is it possible?
I wouldn't want to. I don't
just think for a taste at the end of the year, I wouldn't be shocked though.
Just because he had put on the muscle, I watched him in games. He still needs to get more man strength for the kind of, if you want him to be a top 4 defenseman, he's not there yet. And I don't want to bring in Cam York to put him on the third pairing. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. I mean, there's all different kinds of rationale, but some people like to say, you want him to see a little bit of the NHL, even though you think he's going to be the AHL all of next year. Just to get that. It gives a player motivation sometimes when they play in the NHL. It gives them that feeling of like, oh man, I really want to get back there.
Yeah,
but it's doing it for that reason.
Situation right now in Philly, and it's a lot of pressure if you bring him in because all of a sudden fans start looking at Cam York and thinking their defense is fixed.
Right. That's a good point. So there's there are a lot of interesting things happening right now, and one of them I have to bring up is and if you have to go. I mean, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
I
have to go because the other job's calling. So thanks for having me.
Thanks,
it was fun.
Thanks, Corinne.
We'll see you back at the trade deadline, if not before.
Oh, yes. Cheers. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Take care, guys.
Montreal's not going to be doing anything then.
Yeah, right. They'll never do anything. You knew the second he said that. It was so obvious. So now the 5 wins in a row and playoff bound Nashville Predators. We've talked about them for a second.
7 of the last 8. They're tied with Chicago. And this is going to be bad news for us because David Poile will pull Ekholm, he'll pull Granlund, he'll pull Halla, and he'll tell teams go after yourself because they're in the playoff race. Even if they're 2 or 4 points behind, he thinks he's in the race. They're not going to trade their significant.
No, they're not going to trade those guys, and that is a major thing. And Ekholm, of course, he's not even like an expiring contract guy. So it's like there's no reason you would trade a guy who's, if he was a UFA and they knew they couldn't re-sign him, and you're on the bubble, maybe. But if you have a chance and he's coming back next year, there's no way. They would be irresponsible of Poile to trade Ekholm at this point.
Now, on the opposite side of that coin, based on what we saw over the weekend regarding Torts and how he seems to be losing it in Columbus, that might mean Savard is on the block. That might mean Nick Foligno is on the block because I don't know. I don't know whether Columbus has what it takes or there's enough patience there anymore for them to be in a playoff run.
I tell you, I got a text today, Mike, and the text basically said, the players there are waiting for the season to end, and knowing that Torts is leaving, you're not going to get much motivation out of that team. You're just not. Yeah,
there's no motivation going on. And honestly, Savard will become the big get on the defensive market, I think. Yeah. And he, with Ekholm not on there, and I think that Florida with Zito and his experience with the Blue Jackets is going to be first in line. I mean, I don't know that from any way, but it would make so much logical sense.
Well, I've seen things like that in terms of them theorizing that Savard, but again, the Savard in Florida because of the connection with Zito and him.
Yeah, and now the Ekblad injury. I mean,
but again, Savard is a number 3 defenseman. They put Anton Strawman on waivers last week because, they knew they could do it because it opened up cap space. But it's also a commentary on the fact that he's not that good of a defenseman anymore.
No,
Now your number 1 defenseman is Keith Yandel, and your number 2 defenseman is Mackenzie Weegar, and your number 3 defenseman is Anton Strawman. You're not a David Savard away from filling the hole made by Ekblad. I mean, do you want to trade your young assets and your draft picks to not adequately fill a hole? And that's what I'm saying.
The owner might want to, Mike. That's the issue.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the owner could take. I mean, you can't underestimate the power of a team going to the playoffs, even in a year when you can't sell tickets to it. It's like
if the owner says, "Look, I want this team in the playoffs, make it happen," then it's up to Bill Zito to make it happen.
Savard is definitely a good fit for them. Listen, that team is not made, in Columbus throughout their history, and it's not kind of been the same way, with the exception, of course, they have a couple like Seth Jones and Werenski, but they're not a team that's been made up of top line players, but they're made up of players like Savard who really make who battle for you. So to me, Florida is very similar to that. They're not made up of a bunch of superstars. I mean, they've got Barkov and they've got Ekblad, and Huberdeau's having a good year, but beyond that, they're made up of a lot of guys who are some guys who potentially could be some superstars, but some guys who are just like Savard, who work really hard. And I think Savard is going to be, he'd be a perfect fit for them.
Well, he might, but he might in terms of making them a deeper defense. But are they going to be willing to pay the price that is going to be? I mean, take for example what we just said. Ekholm's off the market. Let's say Ekholm's off the market. Automatically, what that means is the price on Savard goes up.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about a right-handed defenseman and the demand of a rental market where there are not a lot of teams. I mean, maybe Brandon Montour is the only guy I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe Josh Manson that are in contention with Savard for the top. And Manson's not a rental. Montour is. Okay, so you're starting with a first-round pick. And it's probably going to go up from that point.
Probably.
And so it's a first. I don't know whether that's worth Bill Zito's while to go out.
It's not, but it's not going to be up to Bill Zito. It's going to be up to
I think that I agree with that. No, I don't really agree. I think that
I agree with that because I know.
I think that this is what it comes down to. It doesn't come with jams in general, and this is just what I found to be the case. And not necessarily, this is not personal information. I think but that once the owner says, you basically go to the owner, you say, am I allowed to go for it or not? And that's really what it comes down to. There are some owners that are very, very, very much involved in everything, but this guy is not one of those, I don't think. And I think that, if he's allowed to go for it, then he's going to be allowed to, then he goes for it. That's what he does.
Right.
And if he's not allowed to go for it, then he doesn't. But it's not like
I'm sure Viola's not going to say he's not allowed.
You take what now?
I don't believe they'll say he's not allowed to go for it. I don't think the owner would ever say that.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Not in this case. Yeah.
I think they are going to look at what they have right now, and they're going to look at it. They've got a good rally. I mean, really, even if you lost to Tampa in a series, a competitive series against the Tampa Lightning would do wonders for this team, right? So they want to get that series. I mean, we kind of the NHL really wants that series. Obviously, the NHL wants the Florida Tampa because that could be the kind of thing. We got to get those two teams have a rivalry. It doesn't exist right now.
Yeah. And Davy Jones in the chat is saying Mark Staal ? I mean, Mark Staal and Aaron Ekblad. That there's the cavern in between those two.
It's not that you're replacing those guys. Of course, you can't replace Ekblad. The idea is what can you do to keep yourself to keep the bucket from completely spilling. You have to stop it. You have to make it stop. To stop it for long enough to get you into the playoffs and long enough to make it out maybe, but. Maybe not, and they really like their young defense, and they've got they're doing a lot of good stuff with their young defense. So
no, listen, they're a good team, but even if these injuries are only for the next week, aside from Ekblad, they could lose ground just in that week to kind of make you think, how deep should I really go here? The other thing I want to mention to the chat room was Matt Fratton's name was brought up and by Roger, and Matt Fratton wishes he had an elite shot like Cole Caufield. There is absolutely no
Russ,
way of comparing these two players.
He wasn't bringing up Matt Frenton in reference to Caufield. He was bringing.
He was bringing him to his reference that you can't tell.
No. He was bringing him up in reference to the college guy that the Leafs signed. Then Matt Frenton was supposed to be good too. That was the reference. It wasn't.
But Matt Fratton's supposed to be good, and Cole Caufield's supposed to be good. Are on like the polar opposite sides of the.
Because Matt Fratton was
trying to say.
Yeah, Matt Fratton was a 4th round pick, and Cole Caufield was taken in the 1st round. There are differences. Now, Davey Jones is asking, is Goligoski worth a first? No, but
he's not in normal times. But it's all about market value. It's like it's not really about like he's not good enough to be a first round to get a first round.
I'm sure Arizona would take a package of picks, 2 lower picks, because they don't have any.
Look, if I'm giving up if I'm a team and I'm giving up like the 27th pick, I'd probably do it.
Yeah, if you're giving up the 27th pick, you're like the 5th best team in the league. So you think about that. So that's like that's why that changes, because if you're the 5th best team in the league, you don't really need that pick, and you are probably pretty close to making a run. So you want to get there, and that's why you see that. Now that could be Florida. Florida could be right now. They're the 6th best team in the league. So it's like
here
they're really not. We have to.
I know they're really not, but
yeah.
But here's some of the interesting things that, like, on the weekend, which I don't really understand what Don Waddell is thinking, because the Elliot Friedman reported that the Hurricanes put in an ask with Vancouver for Travis Hamonic. The one place that Carolina doesn't need help is on defense. That's it. Now
the thing about you got to remember this, Mike. The one thing, you're right about that. That's where they're strongest. But this is what they're thinking. Everybody in that division is thinking about how you're going to beat Tampa. It's like it all comes down to that. It all comes down to you have to stop Tampa from scoring. That's the bottom line is you have, and that's where they're going to bulk up defensively.
Right, and the thing is, okay, anybody's going to be interested in depth, especially if he's making $1.25 million. But he had a no move clause, and he said, "I'm not going anywhere." He signed to Vancouver to stay there for the year. He's not waiving it to go anyplace. Maybe Winnipeg, because I think it's where his family is from. We know what happened in the past with Hamonic. He wants to stay in Western Canada. Yeah, but then it comes out that Russ, Carolina's shopping a goalie. Carolina doesn't have a goalie.
Waddell said they're shopping a goalie when they come back. Obviously, it's going to be Reimer. Look, somebody will take Reimer, but it's not going to be a big deal. He'll get a 2nd or 3rd round pick, probably a 3rd.
Yeah, they're in love with their kid.
But I'm going to tell you something. The only reason they're trying to go after a defenseman is because A, they're not going to upgrade in goal, and B, they're going to have a hope and a prayer that Ned Velkovic can carry them through. So they're going to try and fortify the defense. But what we've seen in this era is most of the time that does not work.
Right. This is why, and it's interesting to me that unfortunately Florida and Carolina, the 2 teams that have the best shot at maybe beating Tampa, are really matched up horribly against Tampa. Like they really match up. They're not the kind of team that that Tampa would have trouble with. Like Tampa, we've seen the kind of team Tampa has trouble with, like the Columbus team in the last 2 years. Like that's the kind of team. Florida is closer to that, but you got, in order to beat Tampa, you got to outwork them. You got to forecheck them. You can't let them out of their own zone. If you keep them in their own zone, they're okay.
As soon as Reimer was named, I knew this was going to come up in the chat. Reimer back to Toronto. If the Leafs with Anderson and Campbell, honestly, I'd rather have Garrett Sparks.
Yeah. The other thing,
Civ.
Let's talk about Carter Hart, and then we'll go back to the Steves thing after. But it did come out today that Carter Hart, they're going to scratch him the next 2 days, and he's going to work on the ice and do all those things. And this is all great. They should have done this when they talked about doing this weeks and weeks ago. And you can't use the lack of practice as an excuse, which is what they're doing. If there is a lack of practice, then you make Alex Laine your backup. You make Sandstrom the emergency goalie, and you do this to Carter Hart weeks ago. So you're not in the position now where all of a sudden it becomes more dire. It's dire now. It wasn't dire a few weeks ago.
No, it wasn't. And I agree. There was talk a few weeks ago. There was a faction within Flyers world. So there's a mockingbird here, literally mocking me. Hear that? I'm like to myself, wow, that's all I need. The last thing I need is to have somebody at the show mocking me. Would you shut up? Come on. Anyway, it's like,
It's EO. It's EO.
I'm being mocked by by a mockingbird. Stop it. All right. So here's the thing. The sorry. The Flyers a few weeks ago, there was this faction within there that actually wanted to send him to the Phantoms for a bit. And we talked about it. I mentioned it at the time. And you're like, no, that'll never happen. And it didn't happen, obviously. I really still think that would have been the best thing to do. And now you're put in a spot where, you're going to just scratch him. I mean, obviously, that's good. They need to do that. It's not, you guys has to get better quickly. But this will be, I know, Elliot, I mean, the Flyers are still in this thing. It's crazy. They shouldn't be. They're still in it kind of because Boston's been stumbling. Like Boston's been falling pretty quickly too. And that's like Boston's a one-line team. And I think that with all these, what you're finding, I think with all these games grouped up so close together, the one-line teams are having trouble. Like that's you can't play like 6 games in 9 nights with a one-line team.
Yeah, and Boston is, I don't know how many I wish I had $1 for every time Boston has tried moving Krejci, Pasternak down on the second line with Krejci to try to make them a 2-line team. The problem is they don't have a right winger to play with Bergeron and Marchand, and they don't have a left winger who can adequately play with Krejci and Pasternak. So they end up putting that line together, and then they go great guns. But if a team ever shuts them down, just like if a team ever shuts down McDavid and Draisaitl, you're a one-line team and you have no chance in hell. Yeah,
exactly. No, you're right. And besides Edmonton, though, because they've got the best 2 players in the league, so that's a different situation. But I'm talking about they put
Draisaitl and McDavid together, and they scored 3 goals. And did they win? No, they lost.
I agree.
No, they won because their goalie made the right save at the right time.
No, they lost. They lost in overtime, Russ.
No, Edmonton lost. Leafs won because their goalie made the right save at the right time.
There we go.
That's it. It was a great save.
That's true. You admitted to that. That's all I'm saying.
There you go.
But if you want to mention Alex Steves, look, I went back and looked in. I've worked for 2 different companies that do scouting, and he wasn't on the top sheet for either one of them. I've seen him play. I've actually got Notre Dame on the DVR. He hasn't stood out to me like a guy that's going to all of a sudden, be a star player in the NHL. It's good to add depth to the Marlies. Yeah. I don't think – look, as an example, I would take Tanner Lisinski every day over Alex Steves because he has been a way better proven player for more years in college than Steves had. Doesn't mean he can't be good, but I'll be honest. I think he is more of a – not a long shot, but not a guarantee to make it.
Yeah, I mean, just based on statistics, I looked up at what Notre Dame. Steves had double the goals of anybody else on the team. He had 15 goals, and the next guy had 8, and he led the team with 32 points in his junior year. So he's had 2 good years at Notre Dame. And yeah, it's worth a flyer. It's a college free agent.
That's what it is.
It's a professional contract. I have no problem with that.
No, it's good to sign those guys. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good depth for the organization. But is he going to be a superstar? Who knows?
And we should mention that we did mention it the other day, but it was nice to see Sam Morin score that goal. We all root for Sam. It's great. I'm not making any big proclamations for his career. He did play a good game that game. I don't know how it's going to be for him down the road because I still see, while he is good moving the puck up the one way, when the puck goes the other way, he's still a couple steps behind when the other team's moving the puck up the ice. So
yeah, for sure.
You still have to have him in a limited role. And so we'll see.
It is really hard to learn a new position, and it's just
he wasn't. Yeah, that was tough.
People don't give that enough credit. I mean, it's like anybody who's ever tried to coach any team at all. When I coached a hockey team for a while, it's just like you send your kids to watch a hockey game, and you say watch just the left winger and see what he does the whole shift, and he's in the right, and you can watch what the players do in the NHL, and they are crazy in position most of the time. Like they are really 90% of the time they are playing their position perfectly. Do all the little subtleties of that, and it's really, and that's a lot. I mean, and it's not just there are pro players for sure, but it's not that easy to do that.
And you know what? He had trouble off the wall, like seeing how the puck went off the wall. He didn't know what to do with it. Mike Doyle's got a good thing here, Mike, and then they'll get into this bigger one. I guess Anisimov got waived. I don't think the Penguins will pick him up. Anisimov has never been a fast skater. He has a good shot, and I know him really well. Like I've interviewed him many, many times on his own. He is a great guy, but his skills have diminished in this league because of his lack of foot speed, and I don't think the Penguins would be after him.
No, Anisimov got waived because they know he'll clear waivers because they can open up a little over $1 million, and that's what teams are doing right now. Davy Jones was saying, would the Jackets trade Foligno? I think if they're out of it April the 12th, they would. But the problem is, does Foligno want to get traded?
Foligno, right?
He's got a no move clause and a modified no trade. So if they're going to try to trade him to Buffalo, he's going to say no.
Look, he could end up getting way better value than other guys in this market who are more talented because his play does help you in the playoffs, the way he plays the game.
Yeah, so smart player.
It is up to him. Unfortunately, I think if you try and trade Patrick Laine, all you're going to get is a first-round pick and some sort of prospect. That's it. You're not even getting a roster player anymore.
I mean, 1 goal and 2 assists in 16 games, Russ?
Yeah. But this proves the problem with him, and it's up in his head. And if he is not motivated, you have a bad player on your team because you know what he can do and he's not doing it.
But it also proves what we were saying when he just before he was traded. He's a great finisher. He's a complementary player. He is not a franchise player. He's not a building block. He's a better player than this guy, but he is like Phil Kessel. He's that piece that you add to a team that has established players that can get him the puck, that it would be fantastic. But him being a cornerstone player, not a chance in hell. And Winnipeg knew this. Winnipeg robbed Columbus blind. I said
it. You know what? He's not even Phil Kessel anymore.
No.
Until proven otherwise, he's not even Phil Kessel.
I know. It's crazy. I mean, for somebody with that much skill and that much talent, it's just like that.
He's got it all, but it's all upstairs, man. And when he's not motivated, so a team will give you a low first-round pick and some sort of prospect, but they're not getting a lot. They gave up Dubois. Yeah, I know they couldn't sign him, and they couldn't sign Laine either. Right. Look, I can't give you a rosy report for what's going to happen to Columbus down the line because they're going to lose their coach, too. They're going to be going through some big changes. The team that Laine is going to have to be a team that already has the foundation of everything that's great.
Yes.
And then he could just sort of walk in there and get some power play time and get you some power play goals.
Like you throw him on the Penguins, for example. He would be great. He would be incredible. He would have 40 goals every year. He would be playing with Crosby.
Yes.
It's just and it would be nuts. I mean, it feels like he's waiting to get traded to the Penguins. Like to me, it's like that kind of thing. Like that's like he's sitting there like, just trade me to a team with a really, what about you're a second overall pick and you make the players around you better? Like not the other way around. It's just like that to me is very frustrating when a player acts like that. It's like, no, he's sitting there waiting on other players to make him better. No, you're the second overall pick.
Laine is not a bust. Will you stop, Cam?
Not a bust. Well, he's going to have a good career, but it's going to take him getting to the right place. It's going to take the right.
But this kind of deal is asinine. I'm sorry, Davey. Seth Jones is up after this year. Laine's an RFA 1 year, I think 1 or 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. So you're basically giving him a first and a second for Jack Eichel. Kevin Adams is not that stupid. That's not
Laine would be even worse than Buffalo. Like it's like you have to put him in. We talked about he's got to be on a team that's close that already has skilled players. It's like
he needs to be sheltered. He needs to be sheltered.
He needs to be fed. He wants to do his thing. Like he wants to do his thing, And even Ovechkin, who is Ovechkin needs to be fed too. And without Backstrom, people question how many goals Ovechkin would. He would have a lot. He would have done a lot.
Trust me, but
but Laine has to look at Ovechkin the way Ovechkin plays because that's how Laine has to play.
Yes.
And the deadline potentially has taken another hit last night when the news came out that Raquel got hurt during the game with Anaheim. It was an upper body injury. We haven't heard a report yet, but if Raquel is off the market and then Ekholm and Granlund and Halla are off the market,
we're just going to be reading the CBA on April 12th.
We're going to have to predict go back and say, hey, what was the lineup for the 1980 Buffalo City?
Yeah, no, there'll be trades, but they're just going to be.
They're going to be interesting trades. It's going to be
lesser players.
It's going to be one of the more fun trade deadlines, though. From my perspective, when you have big players out there, of course, that's great for traffic and for sure. Yeah. But but they're also, all those big players are being tracked by all the big insiders, the guys who have the contacts with everything.
And we're going to see goalie movement. There's going to be goalie movement.
Yeah, so I have a better shot at this deadline of actually breaking something because,
yes, you do. I agree.
Somebody was asking a question about why isn't Max Domi on the trade list? And okay, Max Domi's got another year at $5.3 million, and he's having a terrible year this year.
They're not even considering. I talked to somebody about that. It wasn't even close. That's why he's not on the trade list. It's not even. Now, Goaltending. Okay, Goaltending. People are talking about Goaltending too.
Sure.
Friedman said Edmonton wants Goaltending, but they're not going to give up. They're not getting a bidding war. They're not going to give up more than the first round pick. Detroit won't move Goaltending for that because they'd rather him just stay there and continue to work with the players. They'd rather him stay there and continue to work with the players, and then Goaltending likes it there. They'll sign him another. It's like that's like.
And you know why Edmonton is not willing to offer anything. Anything more than a fourth round pick, because they don't have a second and they don't have a third and they don't have a fifth. So trade a third round pick in 2022. Why not?
Right. That's what they should do. But the problem is, Mike, Holland has looked, into the future with that team and realizes he can't trade any more futures.
No, he's got to start.
He has to start building again.
So he's sort of like in the same position that Pittsburgh is. They don't have any draft picks this year, and they want to add at the deadline. But how can they add when they have no draft picks? And how can you take advantage of Ron Hextall and his ability to, ferret out good prospects when you don't have any picks?
Right.
Yeah, but a lot of Hextall's strength wasn't in the first round. That's like
that's true.
They don't have depth picks either, Ak.
I know, but the depth picks are where Hextall really made his work.
Yeah, he might get a few of them. There might be some trades.
They could trade people after the year. Yes.
Yeah, they can, and I think you'll see some things like that. I mean, Pittsburgh's going to try to boost a little bit, but they're not, from what I've been told. And they told Hextall, we do want to make a run because they do feel like, and they're right.
They are going to make a run this year, and then they're going to do their reset. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, and they're right in saying that they have a shot that this division is wide open because it is.
Yes.
There's really one team in the NHL that is a Tampa. Like Tampa is by far better than everybody else, and they also are, getting Kucherov back, so, or whatever. So it's like Kucherov back, right? So to me, that's the only team that you have to be scared of if you're Pittsburgh or anybody, because
I agree with that. The only thing is, look, they have the best team on paper. They have depth. I still like Colorado, and you're right. There's always that unknown factor of what's going to happen with injuries and COVID. I mean, COVID's still going to play a factor in these playoffs too, because it's not like it's gone. It's not gone. So I think those things are fair. I look at it with the Pens, and they will definitely make a trade, but I think they're going to end up doing a hockey trade, player for player. I don't think they're going to do much with trading picks. I think they are going to hold on to what they have and maybe even get a pick back on a player for player trade if it's that kind of trade. I think that's what they're sort of looking for. Yeah.
I think so too. I think you're right about that. I think you're going to see.
And look, they picked up Friedman for free. He hasn't played a lot, but you know what? He's a depth guy for them. Somebody gets injured, Mark Friedman is a great guy to throw in there.
Yeah, for sure. This week is going to be an interesting one. When you look at the schedule, there's a lot of teams playing each other that are battling each other. So this is going to be one of those.
Well, let me ask you about this.
Yeah.
This game tonight with the Flyers and the Sabres is problematic in the sense that the Flyers should blow them out and the Sabres should lose their 18th in a row. But
this Flyers team has never done that. This Flyers team.
And what if the game is close? What if it's close? What if it's 2-2 at some point? There's a lot of pressure on the Flyers, I feel. Yeah. And that's we got to see what they're made of, I guess. If that happens.
This is the game. I mean, honestly, you have to get your points against the Sabres and the Devils the rest of the way, and you have to make sure because everybody else is, going to take points from each other. But you have to
except the Bruins, they have trouble with the Devils.
Yeah, I know they do. You have to get these points, and this is a Flyers team that this core, no matter who coaches them, because characteristically play to level their competition. That's what they do, and that's why tonight's a scary game again. Because we've seen, the last time Buffalo came in, they won that game. We were not at that game, Russ. It was like, they won it, but it was like a painful win. It
was a painful win.
They won in overtime. It was just like ridiculous. It's just like they have to make a statement tonight if they're going to be serious the rest of the year.
Was it in a shootout?
Yeah, they won in a shootout. Yes, and a game that they fell behind. They were trailing 3-1 at one point, but you knew they were going to win the game. You just knew they were going to win the game because they just had to turn it on. But
I was going to ask, by the way, since he was recalled, Mike Smith has played, and so has the great Mikko Koskinen. But
yes,
the savior known as Alex Staal has not played.
Listen, that's up to the coach. Tippett's not going to play the unknown until he has to, Mike. But
he's not a savior, though. He's not.
You don't know that until he goes in there. If he wins it, listen, you don't know that.
I think what they have felt like is that he didn't get a lot of time in Minnesota. He didn't play a lot in Minnesota. He was on quarantine after that. I do think they're giving him from what I understand, they're treating it like a training camp for him in a lot of situations. So he's really getting it. And I think you're going to see him. You're going to see him. That's what everybody tells me. But whether or not you do, Smith right now is also playing very, very well. So it's hard to, instead of Koskinen,
although I got to tell you, if there's not a goalie who looks shakier every minute to minute in net in the NHL, it's Mike Smith.
He is the worst possible goalie for that system. Like that, that system already looks shaky as it is. That system defensively looks like it's like playing roller hockey. But so it's like when Smith adds to it, like he just by playing the puck as much as he does, he creates complete confusion and chaos all the time. Yeah. It's so funny, like the differences between like certain goalies in the league. I remember Bobrovsky. One of Bobrovsky's strengths, is just freezing the puck all the time. Like that's what he does. He slows down the game and he controls the momentum. Smith just throws the puck back, and tries to make 200-foot passes all the time. It's like,
because I don't know, why would we think that Anderson's injury being season ending? Nobody thought that.
Well, no, I mean what the talk is right now is that they don't think his return is imminent, but they don't think it's season ending, which of course, raises the specter and the suspicion that maybe it is a serious injury, and they're just not releasing it because as soon as they say it's a serious injury, then the price on any goaltender goes up.
It's not a serious injury. It's serious because Campbell's playing well, and they decided to slow down the process for Anderson because why rush him back if Campbell's playing well? That's what it is. And that's why I never believed it was a serious injury.
That could very well be the case, but I also think that if they thought Anderson was close to 100%, he'd be playing. I think it could.
Oh yeah, I don't think he's 100%, but if he's 95, Mike, they're not going to rush him.
Right, and from what it sounds like he's not like he's. I hesitate to put a percentage on it, but he's not close to 100%, and that's affecting his ability to play. If he's closer to 100%, then he can play it at a pretty decent level. But right now, he's not close to 100%.
Right. I mean, I'd never like to hear someone say we don't think it's season ending. It's like that's not a good thing to say. Like if you don't think it's season ending, that it might be season ending, which means that if it might be season ending, then you really have issues. Right. They need to say this is not season ending. He'll be back. Or they need, but they're not saying that yet either.
That was the thing. Before the game on Saturday, Sheldon Keefe said that they were going to have an update on Anderson's condition fairly soon. Now, today he was asked and they didn't have, or yesterday he was asked and they didn't have an update, and today he wasn't asked. Tonight they're playing Hutchinson in goal because they don't want to overwork Campbell because they played Campbell 3 games in a row. So they're concerned right now about overworking Campbell because he's coming off an injury. So, if Anderson's status is up in the air and they're worried about overworking Campbell, then you could see them make a move for a goalie if they think that they need depth. Because
Campbell is 6-0 with a .945 save percentage.
Campbell's been crazy good.
I know, Russ.
But Anderson's not getting a start until Campbell shows he can't run.
He had consecutive shutouts that were a month apart because of injury.
No, I get it. But I'm just saying they're not putting Anderson in net if Campbell is still hot and has the right days off. They're not going to do it.
What I like about Campbell,
they're going to ride Campbell.
When I watch Campbell play, that I don't love about Anderson is, we have seen, and it was a long time ago when Campbell was a USA goalie, but we've seen Campbell in playoff type, tournament type situations do really well, that he has the ability to step up his game in those big games, and that has been the knock on Anderson to a degree, right? So let's see how this plays out.
Russ, was he the goalie in the John Carlson game?
He was the goalie in that game, and he made some huge saves in that game and that tournament in general. And at that point, I was super impressed with him. But just that's the kind of thing that you like to see. You like to see a guy who can step up at the higher levels and play and bring his game up. And that's something that a team that's going to win a Stanley, that tries to win a Stanley Cup, has to have. So we'll see what happens here. This if I'm right, I don't go away from Campbell at all, but I definitely don't want to overwork him either. So I think you'll see Anderson get some starts, but I think Campbell.
he will, but not until Campbell loses a game.
It should be Campbell's job to lose right now. Honestly, I mean, he's been that good.
Temporarily, it's temporarily.
Yeah. Well, it's until he loses it. I mean, like that is temporary. Anyway,
if he goes on a Hamburger run, I don't think Anderson gets back in there.
No, and he shouldn't, because I mean that's the way goalies work.
Yeah, a Hamburger run was 21-1. I think it was.
I know.
I mean, okay,
no, that's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
I know. No goalie's capable of that in Toronto. That's what you're saying, Mike. I get it.
He fell out of that, and man, now where is he? Right? Gosh, that Hamburger, man, that was a quick rise and a quick fall.
It was. Well, when do you see the Hamburger in commercials? You don't see the Hamburger at all.
Onions only, please.
I know. I was always a Grimace guy. Like I thought Grimace was like very underrated, but
Grimace
then
was a bad guy. You could see he was a bad guy. He was troubled. Grimace was troubled.
Ronald McDonald is a bad guy. Like
not as bad as
Ronald McDonald is creepy as hell, and you can't get around
creepy.
that. As like that is like, you know, when you ever go to the places that like have like we were at like a hospital the other day, unfortunately, and there's a Ronald McDonald house, which is a really wonderful thing.
Mayor McCheese. Mayor McCheese got caught having an affair with Jan from the Toyota commercial.
No, but I did hear Grimace was the cousin of Jabba the Hutt. I'm not sure if that's true, but
there's definitely some gritty in Grimace. I think.
Yeah,
I feel like if Grimace and Barney had like a love child, it would be Grimace and Oscar the Grouch had a love child. That would be gritty. There you go.
But honestly, Mike's right about Mayor McCheese. I don't think I've seen him in 20 years.
No, Mayor McCheese, he was ousted in a violent coup, from what I understood. All right. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow.